Now let's take a look at a command known as cap. So we had created a curve using the rectangle command over here, and we had selected it and we had typed in planar surface to turn it into a surface. And once you're done using this, we had tried to extrude this particular surface using the extrude surface command. Now using the extrude surface command, once you select it and if you turn the solid to no and give it a height, you can notice that the top is missing. But in order to bring the top back, you don't have to go back and do the entire extrude surface command again. You can simply select your object and you can just type cap and press enter. Do that, the solid will be capped from both the ends. You can extract your solid and you can see it will be capped from both the bottom and from the top. That is the cap command. Now let's try using a very important command in Rhino. It's called the project. So you can actually try projecting curves on a curved or on a tapered or a twisted surface. So in this case, let's try projecting something on something and let's take a look at how it works out. So in this case, let's try creating a surface like this, and let's try copying it in the z-axis. You can hold on to alt and you can copy like this. After you're done, we can create a curve on this particular surface and we can project it on this particular surface. Now once you're done copying your object in the z-axis, let's try using cage edit to deform it a little bit. You can select your object and you can type cage edit. Select the cage edit option. You can select bounding box as usual. You can select the world coordinate system. You can keep the x, y and z point counts as 4 and you can press enter, and you can use the global region to edit. Now deform it a little bit. You can select the center points like this, holding on the shift. Once you are done selecting the central points, move them up a little bit, taper your solid like this to create like an organic blend. Once you're done, you can just hit escape and you can delete the external boundary like this. So now let's try creating something on this particular surface and let's try projecting it on this particular surface. So if you create a curve like this using your control point curve, this surface like this, now you can actually project this particular curve onto this. So you can select your curve and you can just type project and press enter. Now it will ask you for the surfaces and the polysurfaces that you want to project your curve onto. So in this case, this, and once you're done, you can press enter. So as you see, the curve has been projected in the z-axis on our deformed surface. Let's take a look at it again to understand some intricacies of it. You can just select the curve and you can type in project. Now before doing anything, you can actually notice over here that before selecting the surface, you can notice you have the direction as C plane Z. So the C plane is nothing but your grid, the viewport grid that you have. So by default, the direction is in the Z axis. You can click on direction and you can actually change the direction if you want it to be in the X, Y, or minus X or minus Y axis. So in this case, I am just going to let it be. I can just press enter and select my surface and I can just press enter, and my curve will be projected onto this surface. Now to understand that my curve has actually been projected on, you can try splitting this particular surface. So you can type split like we did earlier, and you can select your object to split. So you can select your surface, you can press enter, and you can select the cutting object as this particular curve, and you can press enter once again, and you can select the central object and you can move it out to check whether your surface has been projected by the curve properly. And as you can see, we have successfully projected this curve onto this surface like this. That is project. That is the project command in Rhino. Now let's take a look at a command known as dup border. So that is actually short for duplicate border. So you can actually duplicate the borders of surfaces. So in this case, if I have this particular surface and if I move it a little bit over here, in this case, if I want to duplicate the border of this exact form that I have, I can just select my surface and I can type dup border. You can see the first command, it says dup border. You can just press enter, and as you can see, it says duplicated two borders. So you have two completely closed curves which have been duplicated. You can move your surface, you can check it out. You can actually see that two of the curves have been duplicated like this. Now let's take a look at another command that is known as patch. You can actually select these two curves that you just duplicated. You can select them and you can type in patch, and you can take a look at what happens. You can actually see that it is giving you the U and the V spans like you have in rebuild, and you can click on preview to see how it will look like. As you can see, if you click on preview, you can see that these two particular curves have been patched in this particular fashion. It is patching up the entire surface and returning you a similar result of the original surface that you had. So you can just click on OK and you can have a patch surface. And in this case, you can again split up this surface using the split command. You can just type in split and press enter. You can select your object to split. You can press enter, and you can select the cutting object as the curve, and then you can press enter and split it up. Once you split it up, you can move your surface that you just split and you can take a look at the patch surface that you just split. Now let's take a look at some of the other advanced commands that you have in Rhino, like iso curve. So to use the command iso curve, you need to create a surface like this. So this kind of a geometry will do. So in order to create and use the command iso curve, you just have to select your surface and you just have to type iso curve. So you have a lot of options for iso curve. Let's try using extract iso curve. So you click on extract iso curve and it will ask you for the iso curve to extract. Now as you can see, if you move your mouse on your surface like this, you can see that you are being able to extract an iso curve in on the form of this particular surface. So if I want an iso curve over here, I'll just click and I can extract as many iso curves as I can in this particular manner. You can also extract the iso curves in the V direction. You just have to change the direction over here, which says U. You can click on direction and you can either select U and V, or you can select both. So let's try using both this time. If you click on both, you can see that you can actually extract both the iso curves like this, both in U and V direction in this particular manner. You can also click on extract all. Click on extract all, it will select all the iso curves in your surface, and when you're done you can just hit enter. So that is the use of the command extract iso curve. Now let's take a look at using the same command on a planar surface. You can also use the extract iso curve on planar surfaces like this. You can select your surface and type in extract iso curve, and you can press enter, and you can create iso curves like this. So in this case the direction is changed to both, so I can create iso curves wherever I want. Once you're done, you can just hit enter and you can create iso curves in planar geometries as well. So now let's take a look at a command known as loft. So loft is a very popular command in Rhino. If you want to use loft, you need to create curves to loft. So in this case, let's go to our top view and let's try creating a curve using control point curve shortcut over here. Let's click on that and let's try creating a curve like this. So in this case, let's go to our top view and let's try creating a curve using control point curve shortcut over here. Let's click on that and let's try creating a curve like this. So in this case, let's go to our top view and let's try creating a curve like this. So in this case, let's go to our top view and let's try creating a curve like this. So in this case, let's go to our top view and let's try creating a curve like this. So in this case, let's go to our top view and let's try creating a curve like this. So in this case, let's go to our top view and let's try creating a curve like this. So in this case, let's go to our top view and let's try creating a curve like this. So in this case, let's go to our top view and let's try creating a curve like this. So in this case, let's go to our top view and let's try creating a curve like this. So in this case, let's go to our top view and let's try creating a curve like this. So in this case, let's go to our top view and let's try creating a curve like this. So in this case, let's Once you're done, you can hit enter. Let's go back to our perspective view, and we can actually copy this curve in the z-axis. So you can hit alt and you can drag the blue arrow like this. So once you are done copying it, you can actually flip this curve around, or you can scale it up a little bit to induce a little bit of change in this particular curve. So how about we scale it up in the y-axis like this and flip it the other way around like this. You can also use mirror to do the same thing. Now we can use loft command on these two curves and take a look at what happens. So you can just type in loft and press enter, and you can select the curves to loft. You can select these two curves and you can press enter, and once you are done pressing enter, you can see that your curves will be lofted in this particular fashion. So you can also use loft in another context. For example, we can try creating 3 arcs and then loft them together. So you can move to the front view and you can try creating arcs like this, and go over to the arc shortcut that you have over here. You can click on the drop down button and select a lot of arc options. Let's try selecting this one, which is this second option in the drop down menu. You can select that and you can create an arc like this. Let's try using it again. So you can turn ortho on and you can create an arc like this. So once you're done creating an arc, you can move out of your front viewport. You can go to your perspective viewport, and now you can actually copy this. You can hold on to alt and you can copy it, the y-axis, copy it 3 times, and you can actually scale it up. You can scale this one down a little bit and try scaling this one also up. So once you're done creating the curves, you can just type in loft and you can hit enter, and you can select all the curves that you want to loft, and you can press enter, and your curve will be lofted in this particular fashion. So as you can see, we have lofted our curves, created this kind of a geometry. You can edit the geometry using scale if you want to in this manner, increase or decrease it, change its form, and you can try to play with it. So that is lofting for you in Rhino. Now let's try using the command known as sweep. For using sweep, what we'll try to do is we'll create a closed planar curve first. So we can go to the top viewport and zoom in a little bit, and we can create a curve like this using the control point curve. Create a curve like this, and you can go to the perspective viewport now. Once you go to the perspective viewport, what we can do is we can try to create a geometry on this particular axis, on this particular rail. So we can create a circular geometry like this and select the center like this. You can create a circle on its plane. Once you're done creating the circle, you can try rotating it in the y-axis like this. You can turn off ortho and then rotate it. Much easier that way. So once you are done creating a circle like this, what we can do is you can try to use the command sweep. So you can just type in sweep. So you can see you have 2 options for sweep. You have sweep 1 and sweep 2. Let's try out sweep 1 first. So if you use sweep 1, it will ask you to select the rail. In this case, our rail is this particular curve that we just made. So you select your rail, and after you select your rail, it will ask you to select the cross section curves. In this case, the cross section curve is this particular one. So you select the cross section curve. Once you're done, you can just hit enter, and once you hit enter, it will ask you to drag the seam point. In this case, I guess that the seam point is just fine. You can hit enter again, and you can change the settings over here if you want to, but I don't really think you need to. In this case, you can just click on OK, and clicking on OK, you can see we have created a ring like geometry like this. So you can play around with sweep. You can try out sweep too. In this case, we can again create a curve like this, a closed planar curve like this. And this time we can try creating multiple sections on this particular curve. So let's try creating an ellipse using this particular shortcut, and let's try also creating a circle over here and a slightly bigger circle over here. So once you have created these three geometries, you can try flipping them around using the rotate tool in Gumball. You can rotate them like this. In this case, I guess you have to rotate it the other way around, which is this particular axis. You have to rotate it like this. Using the green curve that you have, using the green arc. And once you're done rotating all your geometries, you can just type in sweep and you can select sweep 1 and you can select your rail. And after you are done selecting your rail, now you can select your cross section curves one by one. So you have the first one, the second one, and the third one. And once you're done selecting them, you can just press enter and press enter once again. And once you're done pressing enter, you can see that our sweep is not completed. So to complete it, you have an option over here under sweep options. You have closed sweep. Make sure to check that. And once you check that, your sweep will be completed like this, and you can press OK. Now you can see over here that you have a nice sweeped geometry using the sweep command. So now that we have understood how loft works and how sweep works, let's take a look at another advanced command that is known as drape. So for this particular command to work, what we actually need is a lot of geometries in one place. So let's try creating them at first. So you can go to a slightly different area that you have, and you can try creating boxes like this. You can try copying them multiple times. You can also try to scale them up a little bit for variations. Once you're done with this, we can also create some different kind of geometries like spheres. So you can just type in sphere, press enter, and you can make spheres somewhere over here. You can also copy this. You can hold on to Alt and you can copy it somewhere over here. Do the same. Once you're done with creating the spheres, you can edit it by scaling it up a little bit like this. So once you're done creating these kinds of geometries, now let's understand how drape works. So you can select all these geometries and you can just type in drape. So after you type in drape, it will ask you to drag a window over the area to drape. So for this particular option, you can move to your top view. And after you move to your top view, you can just drag a window like this. Once you're done, you can just leave it like this, and now you can go to your perspective. You can take a look at what we have achieved. This is the geometry that we have created using drape. So what has actually happened is we have placed like a cloth simulation over these geometries, and it just fell over to the ground plane, and this is what you have after you use the drape command. Now let's take a look at a command known as linear array. So what if we want to array some geometry? So if you have a geometry like this, if you want to array it in a particular direction without the need for copying it multiple times, you can just type in linear array, or it's also known as array linear. It's this particular command, array linear. So you can just click on it and it will ask you for the number of items. So in this case, if I want to copy it 10 times, I'll just type in 10 and I'll press enter, and now it will ask me for the first reference point. So I'll click on the first reference point, maybe this, and as you move it like this in the x direction, you can see that the object is being copied in the x direction 10 times. So once you are done and once you're happy with the distance that you have given, you can just click and your object has been copied 10 times in this particular direction. So we can try that again using this particular geometry. So you can select your geometry, you can type in array linear, and number of items you can change it to maybe 6 and press enter. And first reference point we can maybe give this, and second reference point we just drag it. You can actually turn on ortho, it will be much easier. So now you can select the amount of distance you need between each object and you can just click. So there you go, you have n number of objects in a particular desired direction that you have. So that was linear array, and now we can try using a command known as record history. So what this particular command does is it records whatever operation we are doing, and after we are done with the command, if we change some of its complications, if you try to change an initial geometry, it reacts with it. So let's try understanding what it means. So suppose I have created this particular geometry. So if I move my lofted surface, so I have this particular surface, right? So now in this case I have lofted these three curves and I've created this geometry. So if I turn on the record history option I have on the bottom, after gumball you have record history. So if you turn that on, and after turning it on, if you type in loft, and if you loft these curves like this, and if you press enter and you hit OK, if you change the curvature of any of these curves, the lofted surface changes with it. So if I scale it down a little bit, you can see automatic changes are happening to the lofted surface. If I scale it up a lot, you see the surface changes itself. So this is a very essential tool in understanding that how the record history command works. So Rhino basically understands and records all the actions and all the commands that we perform as architects, and what it does is after recording it, when we try to make changes in the initial script, it allows us to make those changes. So that was the record history command. Now we have covered over 25 to 30 essential commands in Rhino, which ranges from basic and intermediate up to advanced commands. These commands are enough for you to get started using Rhino and create innovative architectural geometry.